Well, hello, it's Kathy and Rosie Vesperina. I have to preface this video with saying this is a long one because I didn't want to cut any of it because I was so excited that I finally did a ride out to Pie in the Sky in Cowan. So, just to set the scene here, we met at the Harley Davidson shop in West Gosford. I think there's about 8 or 10 of us, and we're now heading up Carryong Hill, which is a hill that I was really nervous about riding Rosie up because it's a bit steep, but she did beautifully. I think a saving grace was that this section here is a 40k zone and they've blocked off one of the lanes to do some repairs or upgrade, and so that first little bit was only 40 k's an hour. The whole road is only 60 k's an hour, but you can see that it's quite windy and steep, and so I was never sure whether Rosie would get up there safely, but she did beautifully. She always surprises me in how she manages hills and speeds and things. It's a really hot day today, and so the plan is to ride to Pie in the Sky or Pits at Cowan and then reassess what we do after that. So I have wanted to ride to Pie in the Sky for a long time, and I've probably mentioned it in other videos, but I've never been keen to do it on a weekend because that's when it's really busy. Obviously people come up from Sydney, people from the coast go up there, and it's just chock-a-block. There's always police up there because it's so chock-a-block, and all in all just too busy for me. And obviously there's cars as well, and so that mixture was not something that I wanted to tackle, given I'd never done it before. So it's a Thursday today, and we're hoping, and I'm hoping, that there aren't too many cars on the road or very busy riding and fast riding other bikers on the road, but we'll see how we go. So I said I think there's about 10 of us. There's a group that went before us who are a little bit faster than me, and Joe, who's one of the admins of the Central Coast Women's Riders Facebook group, kindly chose to take the slower riders. So her son Alex is in front of me, and behind me is another rider named Mary, and I think we've got one other rider, and I've forgotten everybody's name because I was so focused on the riding, because I was so nervous that I didn't have any brain capacity for anything else. So the plan is to ride to the Pits or Pie in the Sky and try and stick to the speed limit, and manage all of those turns well. So we're coming up Carryong Hill now and down the other side. If you follow this road straight ahead, you end up on the M1 freeway, which I never want to ride on Rosie. Oh, I think I almost went, oh no, it was orange. I was going to say I nearly went through a red light then, but it was orange. I also didn't want to lose my riding friends. So straight ahead is the M1 freeway that will take you to Sydney, but we are not going that way today. I did also, so we're just turning off to the right here towards Wiseman's Ferry, and then before Wiseman's Ferry we turn left and go past the wildlife place and out to Pie in the Sky that way. As I said, I never ever want to end up on the freeway, so there are a few turn-offs on the way to Pie in the Sky that are ways to get back onto the freeway, so I was a little bit scared that we might accidentally end up on one of those, or that if I lost Joe in front of me that I would accidentally take a wrong turn and end up on the freeway. So this is our turn off now, I think. What was interesting about this is that, oh, excuse my hand, this first section is 70, and then there's another 70 section a bit further along, but predominantly this road to Pie in the Sky, which is the old Pacific Highway, is 60 k's. And what the girls were telling me was that this was a road was originally 100k for most of it, an hour. And the thought of doing 100 kilometers an hour on this road is a little bit terrifying to me. But anyway, apparently that's what it was. I don't remember it being that speed. I've driven up here before, obviously, but never been on Rosie, and I don't remember it ever being 100, but maybe it's just because I've lost the memory of it. We did, well, I'm faffing a lot with my equipment at the moment. I'm faffing to make sure the camera is right. I'm faffing to make sure my helmet visor is down securely, so all I have to do is focus on the actual riding part. We did pull over up here a little bit just because there were a couple of cars behind, and Joe very wisely said it's better to let them go before we get to the twisties, so that was a really good idea. So we let those pass before we continued on. The person behind me, Mary, is riding a scooter, a 110cc scooter. And one of the other lovely ladies in the group, Sam, has a Honda scooter, but it's a 310, I think it is. And she did let me have a sit on it, and honestly it felt like I was sitting in a very comfortable plush armchair. The seat was beautiful, and I think she said it was a touring scooter, which means obviously you can take it on bigger rides, and she is planning to do a bigger ride with her husband on it. But it was beautiful and it felt really secure. I didn't actually ride it, I just sat on it, but I thought, oh my gosh, that's lovely. And it did get me thinking that, you know, if she's taking a 310 scooter on a big adventure, then I should be fine with a Royal Enfield 350 if I want to do adventures as well. So anyway, we're crossing over the M1, and we do that a couple of times in this ride, and that was over the bridge. I love a bridge. I'm going to try not to talk too much, even though I know I say this in every video that I do. This one's a long one, so surely I can't talk for a whole almost 40 minutes. But I wanted to share an experience I had yesterday in Sydney. I was down at work in Sydney. I took the day off today to do this ride, but yesterday I was working in Sydney. And when I finished work, I had enough time to go to a bike shop, a motorbike shop, where they had a second-hand Royal Enfield Meteor for sale that I wanted to have a look at. And what I found interesting was the shop was lovely. There were possibly 4 sales representatives, whatever you call them, in the shop. And I spent, and they did offer me some water because it was so hot and I'd walked from the train station. But apart from that, during the time that I was there looking at the bikes, and I was there for quite a bit of time, none of the sales executives or people came up and asked me what I was looking for and engaged in a conversation with me about a bike. And it got me wondering whether I just didn't look like somebody who would be in a bike shop buying a bike. I was dressed in work clothes, linen pants and a linen shirt with a backpack, work backpack. So either I didn't look like somebody who was going to buy a bike or potentially interested in a bike, or maybe because I was female, they didn't anticipate that I would be buying a bike. So I don't know what the reason was, but I was a little bit annoyed about it. I didn't engage with them either, so that's my fault as well that I didn't ask a question. But I just would have thought if you were trying to sell bikes that you would engage in a conversation with a potential shopper that walked in the door. And I haven't had that experience when I've walked into other motorcycle dealerships, so maybe it was just that one. Anyway, food for thought, and as I was catching an Uber back to Strathfield train station, I actually drove past a Royal Enfield dealership in Clyde that I didn't realise was there. So I think I will potentially go and have a look one day after work at the Royal Enfield shop. I did question to myself and to others whether a new Royal Enfield Meteor is around 8,000 and the one that was second hand was 6,000 and it was a 2021 model, whether it's better just paying the extra $2,000 and buying it new with the warranty and hopefully with no little bugs that you're not aware of until after you walk away with the bike. So anyway, that was food for thought. So this road is just beautiful. All the trees, it's green, it's lush. There's not many cars coming in the other direction, as you can see. Lots of twisties that I had to practice all of the things that I had learnt in my lessons around how to take the corner and how you're looking around and through the corner, you're looking where you want to go. I didn't take my eyes off the road and where I wanted to go the whole ride, even though I really wanted to have a look at the scenery. I couldn't because I was just concentrating too hard. It was a little bit of a long ride. This video is around 40 minutes, so and I've cut some out of it, so it did take us a while to get there. And the other thing I found as I was riding was that my mind would wander a little bit, like I guess it does in the car, but obviously much more dangerous when you're riding. So I had a little bit of a moment where I was thinking about whether I had put the washing on before I left, and then I thought, oh my God, stop thinking about other things and just watch and concentrate on the road. So I'm assuming that happens to everybody when they're riding, and this is probably the first time it's happened to me, so it's just a reminder to me to be mindful when I'm riding, because any little error can make me go plop, so we don't want that to happen. So how cool are all these curves? Oh my gosh. It was a lot of fun when I wasn't feeling scared. And the speed limit is 60, but there's so many corners where it gives you a sign to say what speed you should take the corner. So you're continually slowing down and then speeding up to 60 and slowing down for the next corner. And it got me thinking about how you manage that on a geared bike. Does that mean you have to gear down and then gear up, and you're constantly gearing down or up? Or can you sit in third and fourth, or fourth, and just put the brakes on a little for those corners? I don't know the answer to that, and I didn't ask the ladies, but I'll just add that to my list of questions to ask the instructor at the next lesson, and the ladies obviously who took us riding today. The other thing I was pondering as I was riding was how scary it must be if a kangaroo or a wallaby or anything pops out from the bush onto the road as you're riding along here. This is all, I know we talk about in the other rides, the ocean on one side. Generally we've got an ocean on one side and the bush on the other, but this is all just bushland, this area, quite dense bushland, and so plenty of wildlife in here. And how scary would it be if one just come for a little wander across the road while you're trying to ride through? Oof. Not ideal. It was so lucky that I was following Joe, because even though I had the GPS on, I wasn't really looking at it. I was really just, because I was focused so much on riding, and where Joe was going. So thank goodness she knew where she was going. The condition of the road was much better than I anticipated. I actually thought it would be very potholy, but they seem to have done a lot of work on it, and it was really quite nice to ride, which was a surprise. Gosh, how on earth do people ride that at 100 kilometres an hour? I don't know. That's a skill set that will be beyond my level completely. I have another lesson coming up in a couple of weeks with Heart, who are the company I did the lesson with in a couple of weeks ago, or a few weeks ago now. And I'm taking the same course again. And I think I'll probably just do that over and over again until August. And practice on those things that I struggle with. I think I've already mentioned those things are the hill starts, the using the rear brake the foot pedal slash rear brake, and the other thing was the quick stops and knowing and just coordinating that. So those are my areas for improvement, and so that's what I'll be focusing on. Oh, another bridge, another lovely bridge. Again, we're crossing the freeway. Whew. I couldn't look over because I was too scared to, but once I get used to riding the road, I will definitely look over because that'll be a very cool view. So I'll just keep doing those courses till it's time to get my full license. I can't remember if I mentioned this in the previous video, but I did find out that because I have the the P license on an auto, even in a car park, a public car park like the university car park, I'm not legally able to ride a manual bike, a manual bike in the car park because it's still considered a public road, and if you hit another car, you wouldn't be covered by insurances and potentially you could get a fine. So that has been confirmed, and so that limits how I can learn to ride a manual bike until after August. So it's pretty disappointing, but luckily, I can go to those courses at heart and do private lessons and those sorts of things. It's just a shame because I'd really love to practice the slow moving. I'd like to practice the U-turns and the figure eights and all of those sorts of things on a manual bike. So unless I have a friend that's, kind of on a farm or has their own private property somewhere where I can use a manual bike, then, oh well, that's a good test in patience, isn't it? What I noticed on this road, or on this route as well, is we just passed it a second ago, is a sign that has motorcycles and kind of a wavy line to say it's a, slippery, wavery road for motorcycles. But they seem to be really frequently posted along this road, and I'm assuming it's because so many riders ride it, and there's been lots of accidents over the years, so it's just a reminder that the roads are windy and ride safely please kind of sign. At first I thought, is it because the road is slippery in that section, and then I've realised no, this is more of a reminder sign about the type of road that you're riding on. So that's good. I hope that works for people, but I saw people riding past who were going incredibly fast. And when I ride, I liken it to skiing. I'm a snow skier, not a great snow skier, but I do ski. And when you're coming down a hill skiing, you're kind of going from side to side, swerving, and it's very zen-like, but you get to a certain speed when you're skiing downhill where you think, if I crash at this speed, it's going to really hurt and do some damage. And I feel like I have that same sense when I'm riding Rosie, that you don't know, like skiing, you don't know what the terrain is like. When you're riding, you don't know what the road is going to be like, and so you're doing 110 kilometers an hour and you hit a bump, hooly dooly, that's going to hurt. So I can't imagine myself ever riding at really crazy speeds, even if I do have a manual bike that's capable of it. think my age is a factor of it too. You know, the older you get, the more fragile you realise you are. Having a little moment with the GPS because I wanted it to tell me how many kilometres or how many minutes too high in the sky, but what it was telling me was my estimated time of arrival, which is fine, except I've mentioned before that Rosie's clock is out by about 15 to 20 minutes or more now, and so I couldn't really do the calculation in my head about, okay, if I'm going to be there at 1 o'clock, that'll be 20 past or half past 1 on Rosie, because I was too busy concentrating on the road, so I gave up. The bush in this little spot here is a little less dense. You can see on the right hand side there's quite a bit of gaps there. Not quite as lush. And under this bridge, which is the M1 or the freeway heading to Sydney. How crazy is that? So what's that, 1, 2, 3 times we've crossed it now by my calculation? See, now he zoomed fast what seemed to be incredibly fast. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that I don't look as fast to him riding past as he looks to me. I'm sure I just look like a bug running along the road, a little red bug. Much more dense bushland again now. Oh, well, zoomed out a bit again. Must be a bit patchy. Oh, because that's the freeway. I just saw a truck going past on the right. I wish I could record a map of the trip and add that to the video, because I think that'd be interesting. Not quite sure how to do that. I think there are some apps which I have downloaded, like Kalimoto, and there was a couple of others that I think you can record your ride on, but because I'm not allowed to use my mobile phone on my Ps, I don't want to risk getting into trouble. Although, you know, if I turned it on and then popped it in the bag at the back, not in my pocket, it would probably be okay, and then when I stopped I just turn it off. Maybe I might try that on the next one, and that way I can potentially add the route that I've taken into the video. It probably looks like I've lost Joe and Alex because you can't quite see them in front of me, but I was never that far behind them. I like to have a bit of space between me and the next person riding. Oh no, I think you can just see Alex in the distance there. But I do like to have a bit of a buffer between myself and the person in front, and I like a buffer between myself and the person behind, just in case. It felt like a really long time to get here. I think in my mind I thought it was a bit closer than it was, and other times I'd thought about going to Saddlers at Mount White, and I kind of had that in my mind, but obviously Pie in the Sky is much further along the M1 towards Sydney than Saddlers, and so I'd kind of miscalculated in my head about how long it would take to get there. But I'll know next time. What's funny about this is all of this bushland area, I've done quite a lot of hiking in it. The Great North Walk goes from Sydney up to Newcastle, and I've done lots of sections of that before, including some hikes in this area as part of that, but also just hiked here separately. So it's nice to see it from the road as opposed to the bush tracks, which I love just as much as well. I'm so proud of myself for doing this ride and for being really nervous about it but still doing it. You know, sometimes fear can get in the way of you actually achieving your goals, and you sometimes just have to try and rationalise that a bit so that you still give it a go. There are a few, you can see the garbage bins out, but there's a few houses or farmlets along this road that I didn't realise were here. So I guess if you live there, you have to ride or drive this road all the time. That would be Harry McClary. Imagine having to head to Sydney. But I guess you'd join the freeway, wouldn't you? And just carry on that way. freeway, you can see the trucks on our right. Ooh, there's some big trucks. You can see the water on our left. Now onto the fabulous bridge. I think they've been doing some work on this bridge to zhuzh it up a little bit. Love a bridge. Getting very close now to pie in the sky. You can see that we've got double lines on our side at the moment to allow people to pass, but obviously nobody behind to pass. Although I do tell a lie, because I think there must have been some bikes behind, because just after I pulled up, a young man came and pulled up next to me and said, "Gosh, that Vespa did all right, didn't it?" So I said, yes. I said I was pretty nervous, but yes, she did really well. There is a speed camera. I think it's just there actually. I'm not sure. Oh, another bridge. I'm not sure whether that's a new speed camera that's been put up there, but I have seen some comments about it on some of the Facebook pages, local Facebook pages, so it might be new. I was doing close to 60, but I certainly wasn't doing 60, so I didn't feel concerned. And I don't know whether it's facing southbound or northbound. Obviously we're going southbound towards Sydney, but anyway, I wasn't doing over 60 for sure. clearly we weren't holding anybody up because nobody passed. I think we had one car that passed at the beginning, but other than that, I guess that's the beauty of doing this ride to pie in the sky on a weekday rather than on the weekend. I can't imagine what it would be like on a weekend. And look at that, we have arrived at Pie in the Sky. I cannot tell you how happy I felt right now arriving and parking Rosie. So thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.